When hardened criminals repeatedly evade justice, elite police units come together to crack these toughest cases.
Oh, police officers!
My role is investigating serious and organised crime.
We are a covert investigative team.
For the first time across the UK, we have exclusive access to the investigations of Britain's most talented detectives.
We'll spend years putting together all of these tiny pieces of evidence.
The most bizarre investigation I've been involved in.
And share the methods and evidence that can bring these criminals to book.
Handguns coming in from the United States. He had the drugs.
That is a lot of money. A real who did it.
This time, a serious stabbing 2 days before Christmas.
A male's got several stab wounds to his leg and one in his chest.
Leaves a teenager's life hanging in the balance.
A young boy basically bleeding out.
And the police in the dark.
We don't know where they are, who they are, and how we're going to get them.
And in Northamptonshire, the neighbourhood team take on a drug-dealing gang who were terrorising their local community.
Speaking to the residents there, they were scared. They were really scared.
But faced setback after setback.
It seemed like a Groundhog Day loop. We get the intelligence, we conduct a warrant, we get drugs, weapons, cash. The gang doesn't give a damn, and they carry on. We needed something to break the loop.
I started being a police officer nearly 26 years ago, almost a lifetime ago for some people. And I've done the majority of my service on the CID. I've stepped back to uniform a couple of times, but generally speaking, I consider myself to be a detective. It means a great deal to me. When I started, you had a notebook with a pen. I still carry a notebook with a pen because it never lets you down. But you've got to try and keep pace and keep across all these new technological challenges. Not always easy, but that's why I have the team that I have. Generally speaking, there are two really important strands: digital media and CCTV. Invariably, that's real data. It's real-time, hard data that is usually incontrovertible. It's there and it speaks for itself. What can those two strands tell me? Digital media is a fairly new innovation, really, for the major incident resource. With Gracie, with other young in-service officers, they bring energy, they bring enthusiasm. She's also an extremely valued member of the team.
My father is a retired police officer now, so it's something I was very passionate about, and I've been in the force since I was 19 years old. My role is to come in from a digital perspective. What I like is the freedom of being able to push boundaries and try and find where people have slipped up. Nowadays, when something goes wrong, what do we do as humans? We go to our phone. So if something bad's happened, the first thing we do is ring somebody, text somebody, delete everything on our phone. People's lives are on the devices. Their device will give everything away. It's like the diary. Preston, it's intense. Every day we will have something going on. The melting pot of cultures as well makes it so diverse and so much more richer, and it's a lot more welcoming than other cities.
Just before Christmas 2020, the major incident team launched Operation Aspen after a teenager was brutally stabbed.
There was a 999 call summoning emergency services just by the football club of Preston North End.
Keep going, taking the next right by that ice and medical centre.
A distressed female saying that a young male had been stabbed in a property. It sounded chaotic. All you can hear is shouting and screaming.
9-4, can make sure MWAS are aware we're there and they can meet us. Right here.
At the same time, another phone call came in from a male. Within that, he says that 2 unknown males have entered the property and attacked a 16-year-old boy.
The uniformed police officers saw a young boy basically bleeding out. on the floor. You could see the terror in his eyes.
Yeah, male's got several stab wounds to his leg and one in his chest. NWAS on scene at the moment. We'll update you further shortly.
The victim was Sarmad Al-Saidi, a 16-year-old who had gone round to play video games with his friends.
Paramedics arrive and perform medical interventions. They'd opened his chest, massaged his heart in attempts to keep his heart going.
With medics on the scene, the police quickly began to gather evidence from the homeowner who had made the 999 call and the 3 teenage friends who had witnessed the attack.
Right, so they're all playing on the PlayStation and these two lads have run in.
They've just walked in.
Did it happen here?
Yeah, it happened in there where that blood is.
Right, OK.
There's 2 lads who ran through.
Right.
They've gone directly to him. There's been lots of other people pushing and shoving, but they wanted him.
Right, and it's happened just there at the back?
Just there.
What, inside or outside?
No, inside. They were all playing on the PlayStation.
Right.
There were nothing, no aggro, no talking, no nothing. We were even talking about bringing dinner.
Unknown assailants had burst into this address. The victim was singled out immediately. Clearly they knew who the victim was. And the first assailant stepped forward and he began to slash with a knife that was described by the witnesses as a pirate knife, actually, like a cutlass. And then the second male joined in and he was more deliberate in stabbing, making a stabbing motion, and he had what was described as a zombie knife.
But somebody dressed in a black hoodie, he had a balaclava on. I would say he was, I'm 5'5". I would say he's about 6'5", 5'11", 5'10".
They both had balaclavas on. One showed more of the eyes than the other. They believe one male was possibly white. The other one they couldn't tell.
The 2 suspects ran off within seconds of the attack, leaving the other teenage boys who had been playing video games traumatised.
The boys, 2 of them in particular, were just very clearly distressed and upset, and all they were worried about was the victim and if he was going to be okay.
Right.
I didn't see him.
The other witness just said more or less that he hadn't really seen anything and that he just wanted to make sure Sarmad was okay, but wasn't as informative as the 2 other individuals that were in the property.
As the victim Sarmad was rushed to hospital with life-threatening injuries, DCI Wilson immediately pulled together a team to investigate.
That was working really from the off on this case, and Christmas was cancelled that year. For a lot of the staff, you know, it's just, that's policing for you. It's happened and it needs to be dealt with.
Our concern is, what is their next stage now? Is anybody else at risk? Are they going to put others at risk? Because we've got 2 unknown males in the local area running around with 1 large machete and 1 large hunting knife that have caused such ferocious injuries to a 16-year-old child. And we don't know where they are, who they are, and how we're going to get them.
The investigators turned first to CCTV from a nearby property, just before the stabbing happened.
You start to see 2 males, similar build, dressed in dark clothing with what appears to be large objects which keep being pulled and put away constantly.
We saw the knives produced. They'd been in the vicinity for 40 minutes. Are they waiting for some sort of signal? Are they waiting for the victim to arrive? Do they truly know he's in there?
Just going back and forth from the driveway of where the offence took place.
You then get that absolute nailed piece of time where they disappear from view. And then they come out running. Well, you know that's the time of the attack, down to the second. You can see the direction that they're fleeing, but the weather was poor, the quality wasn't the best, so you couldn't identify them from that CCTV.
The team still had very little to go on.
Due to the type of attack, the violence used, and the victim being so young, it really impacted the local Preston area. A lot of people in the community were troubled and upset over this incident, so wanted to help in any way they could.
A public appeal for information turned up the names of 2 possible suspects.
They were both well known to police previously, and crucially, they both knew the victim.
one day later on Christmas Eve, 16-year-old Lamar Forbes was arrested at home. And later on that day, 18-year-old Jamie Dixon decided to hand himself in. Both had known Sir Mad from school.
I've got Jamie Dixon outside the police station.
What were you arrested for?
I'm going to tell you in a second, mate.
You were under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder. Okay. You don't have to say anything about harming your facts. You don't mention when questioned anything. Just read to out in court. Attempted murder? That's not a small charge, is it?
I'm just going to start by asking you, did you try to kill Al Saidi on Wednesday the 23rd of December 2020?
No comment. Is there any reason that you would have committed this offence?
Why would I stab someone up on Christmas Eve when I want to open my presents and go see my mum? You know what I mean? Come on, logic.
Okay.
The main thing was, where they said they were, both claiming they were at their home address, nothing to do with the incident. Both on their arrest had no phones on them, which was unusual.
The police had no motive and no real evidence. But a search of Lamar Forbes' home had turned up missing mobiles. Digital investigator Gracie set about the painstaking work of recovering any evidence that would connect them to the stabbing.
I can identify from call records, rough locations they've been in, if they've used Wi-Fi in certain areas. One individual, his phone placed him in that location because the only way he could use that cell to get his coverage, his network, was to be in the vicinity of our offence location in Preston.
And she could tell who he was in contact with.
There believed to have been a phone call made in the conservatory at the time, just prior to the offence. It's lots of things like this that start to build up and show that actually they got inside knowledge.
One of the teenagers, Hussein, who had claimed his innocence, was also clearly implicated in the attack. And CCTV from the night deepened their suspicions.
We have two suspects in the corner, and our other suspect walks across with like a form of acknowledgement to them being there. Then within a matter of minutes, this phone call between our suspect in the conservatory has taken place. And then the attack on our victim is initiated at that point within a matter of seconds.
I'm pretty confident he gave a signal to those two waiting outside to come in.
He was arrested in the early morning of the 25th of December on Christmas Day.
At this time, you're under arrest on suspicion of conspiracy to commit murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may harm your defence if you do not mention when questioned, something you later rely on in court.
Can you just say your full name for me?
That's never said.
Would you describe you as really good friends? Are you close?
No.
Like the other two suspects, 17-year-old Hussein was giving nothing away. The team needed a break in the case.
It was the morning of the 26th, where a chap went to clean his teeth and happened to notice on a lean-to just under his bathroom window there was a pirate knife-type cutlass on the roof.
This is what's been described as more of a pirate sword. Actually, as you can see, it's clearly more of a machete, but it perfectly matches the description.
The weapon was discarded because they didn't want to be stopped by the police in possession of a weapon. So they decided to get rid of it. Not very far from the attack site at all. It was literally round the first corner.
But after forensic examination, the only DNA found on the knife belonged to the victim. 4 days after the attack, there was worse news to come from the hospital.
Unfortunately, on the 27th of December 2020, our victim died at 16 years of age, surrounded by his family.
They loved him dearly. He was the absolute apple of their eye, is how I would describe it. They never got to speak to their son again, which is a terrible, terrible thing.
At this point, the investigation then turned into a Category A murder investigation of a child. As a result, there's even more pressure on now.
The police were convinced they had the killers, but they still needed the evidence to get a conviction. So the team continued to trawl through hours of CCTV from the local area.
We started to track down actual locations the suspects had gone prior to the offence. One in particular, a local shop, where one suspect has his face clearly on show, purchasing energy drinks prior to the attack, matching the clothing of our description.
CCTV also picked up the main suspects after the stabbing. One as he emerged from a house half a mile away.
He came out just dressed in shorts and not wearing any shoes. CCTV is telling us he's got rid of all his clothing on, a filthy night weather-wise. What a strange thing to do. The younger of the two, he went home, burnt his clothing. And from CCTV, overlooking the back of his house, you can actually see the flickering of the flames.
Gracie Vincent's team were also working on the suspects' phones and focused particularly on Snapchat.
Our suspects, our victim, our witnesses purely communicated off certain social media apps, in particular one which is known amongst most young people as everything disappears once it's sent. But most things are recoverable on your smartphone.
No one even knew apart from me and my boy there, but now I was spreading it half away around Preston, bro. Done this, done that, bro. Come on, man, calm down, man. The guy's preaching over getting stabbed on that.
No one is gassing because no one actually gives bro.
The individuals audio record themselves, sending it to each other, thinking it's disappearing, saying how somebody's going to get stabbed up in a house, bro, it ain't a joke, catch our victim right about now. Our victim is in the property where the offence was, and these are all time-stamped.
See, I don't mind me, bro. My clothes have been burnt, bro, but I don't know what they're going to say to me, you know what I mean?
Both suspects were clearly talking about the offence.
It's way more, G, 'cause it's a heavy-ass charge of that if you get caught, bro.
Yeah, bro, if I get nicked on this, bro, all the taxes are going to come up, man. Bro, I'll get about 10 years, bro. Bro, just delete all these texts. I'll speak to you when I see you in person, bro.
And our suspect, who was formerly the witness, actually did know the identity and had lied on his police statement saying that he didn't know who it was. So little things like that, they slowly all became undone.
My man's hurt, bro. You know what I mean? I know you didn't mean for it to happen, but like, when you made that decision in anger, bro, telling them, just come back, bro. Just come back on all of us hard, man.
Then all of a sudden the tone changes later when I think the realisation comes.
What I mean, I keep on thinking about is I'm playing in my head, bro. Thinking I'm a murderer, bro, you know what I mean?
The messages were incriminating, but one conversation retrieved from Jamie Dixon's call data was absolutely damning.
He received a call from a prison establishment. I think it was 5 minutes after the attack. We had the elder boy who received the call boasting that he'd just stabbed an Asian kid. That was an absolute golden nugget of information and just demonstrates the power, really, of your digital media investigator.
And the digital evidence just kept on coming. The police discovered a horrific video shared online by Lamar Forbes.
This video was several seconds long, and our suspect said he had stabbed our victim up with a large zombie hunting knife. This turned out to have been sent to several people in the Preston area, and this was just one of many things that this individual in particular tripped up on.
Finally, the team had enough evidence to charge both Dixon and Forbes with Sir Mad's murder, and to also charge Hussein, who had claimed his innocence from the start.
There is no doubt in my mind that the third suspect was brought into the plot and sent into that address. One, to confirm that the victim was there, and two, to lull him into a false sense of security, that he was safe, because they'd clearly been friends at some point.
And at last, a motive. It related to an incident that had taken place months earlier.
There'd been a really quite serious fight in which a knife was picked up by our victim. That, unfortunately, cut the elder of the two offenders across his left wrist, if memory serves, caused quite a nasty laceration, and there were threats issued that I'm going to kill you for that.
Presented with the evidence, Lamar Forbes pleaded guilty to murder and was jailed for life. Jamie Dixon and Asad Hussein went to trial. Found guilty of murder, Dixon also received a life sentence. And Sir Mad's supposed friend, Hussein, was sentenced to 5 years for conspiring to commit the assault.
Getting the justice for the family, that was worth every horrendous day of painstaking work and trying to make sense of what had happened.
A bit sad, actually, because it's a lot of young lives ruined. All of those young men, and they've all got to live with the consequences of what they did on that night.
City-based gangs set up networks of street dealers in towns and rural areas to sell their heroin, cocaine and cannabis using a dedicated mobile phone line, the county line. There are an estimated 600 lines operating across the UK, each generating up to £1 million a year for the criminal gangs.
I've been a police officer for over 27 years. It gives me a lot of satisfaction, helping the community. I do like to put bad people in prison. It's just a way of life, it's a vocation. We probably have the same challenges in Northampton that we have elsewhere, but one major challenge is unlawful drug supply. We're close to Birmingham, we're close to London, real big cities. We have a big population, and we do seem to have a county line drugs problem in the town.
In 2019, the neighbourhood's police team began to hear about a particularly violent group of dealers supplying drugs in the town.
We had what was quite clearly a drugs gang operating in the area, with a hierarchy, with a leader. There was organisation. They were using a phone line, classic drug dealing. You phoned that line, you met a runner, you were provided with drugs. Louise was at the PC covering the St David's estate where this drug gang was operating.
I've been a PC for 8 years now. I've got a small patch that I deal with, so I know these people and you know their issues, you know their history. So it's really important, I think, to build that trust in the community. This is the St David's estate. It's in the middle of Kingsthorpe. St David's quite a deprived area. There's a lot of council houses here, a lot of unemployment, a lot of crime, and this is one major part of my beat area.
Towards the end of 2019, a flat on PC O'Sullivan's patch was becoming a major problem.
The constant intelligence that I was getting was Class A drugs, so heroin and crack cocaine, were being dealt in the Drayton Walk area. 40, 50 people were turning up daily to collect their drugs from this flat. Speaking to the residents there, I got the feeling they were scared. They were really scared. There were threats being made of assaults, rocks being thrown through people's windows. They terrorised the neighbourhood, definitely.
With the fear and antisocial behaviour increasing on the estate, the neighbourhood police team set up a special operation, codenamed Eagle, to bring the gang to book. And a key player on the team was Inspector Beth Warren.
I joined the police because I wanted to be able to say that I've made the lives of the community better on those estates. At the time, I was the sergeant for the area, so my role was the operational planning around what we were going to do. The drug dealers routinely carried weapons. We saw people being threatened to be killed. We saw deployments involving machete attacks. They had a total disregard for the law.
And the situation took a darker turn still.
They had started to groom really vulnerable children, and they were doing that because they wanted them to act as lookouts for them when they were doing their drug dealing activity.
When I'd walk on the estate, you could hear audibly the whistles, and you knew those whistles were from the children alerting the gang that we were on the estate and walking around.
But over time, those children, they got them to start to handle the drugs themselves, and that was just awful.
Worried about the exploitation of local youngsters, the team decided to try and close the drug dealing HQ in Drayton Walk.
On that first warrant, a lot of the people involved were in that address and got arrested and were questioned because there was drugs, weapons, money, phones.
You're being arrested
no, but listen to what he's saying.
I don't know what he's saying.
Yeah, listen to what he's saying.
I can't. I'm talking to you.
Why am I getting arrested for something that isn't mine, though?
I don't know whose it is.
Well, listen to what he just said.
I haven't heard
listen
him.
to what he's just said, then, fam. Listen to what he's just said, then.
Just sit down. Just relax.
Listen to what I just said.
Just sit down for a second. Relax. I don't know what's going on.
The raid led to the arrest of gang members Kaeling Smalley, Jamie Hobbs and the gang leader, 20-year-old Cray Stewart. They were charged with possession with intent to supply, but they were not remanded in custody and they were all released on bail. 24 hours later, they were back on the streets, dealing again.
The intelligence kept coming in that Drayton Walk, the address, was being used to deal drugs from, even after that warrant. So in March 2020, we conducted another warrant there.
Police! Police, stay where you are!
You actually sick at the minute, buddy?
Again, some of the same people were there. They got arrested, they were questioned. Same thing, drugs, weapons. And when I say weapons, not just your kitchen knife, you're talking machetes, axes, things that you really wouldn't want to be coming up against in the street.
But even though the team seized drugs, phones and weapons, the second raid fared no better than the first. The Crown Prosecution Service made the decision that the evidence was insufficient to guarantee convictions. And once again, they were released on bail.
It annoyed me that the people that were involved in that flat were still going about their business in exactly the same fashion as before, from the same address, in higher frequency. The people visiting the address, it just seemed to be getting more and more. We all felt rather deflated. We put so much work into getting these warrants, building the intelligence, getting a team together. There's a lot of people involved.
I was really conscious that the community see us going in, doing the warrants and then walking away. And the next day, the gang members who we'd arrested, be charged and remanded them had been released from court and were back on the streets.
The gang stepped up the level of violence. Many in the estate were scared to leave home.
People lived in fear. If they were seen or dared to be seen talking to a uniformed officer, they'd be brandished as snitch.
I would get phone calls from one of the chaps that lived on the estate. He would ring me, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day or more, because they've threatened him, they've threatened his wife. It was awful to hear him crying down the phone every day.
2 months of setbacks and the team needed a break. And it came a month later from an eagle-eyed traffic officer.
I was just travelling down Spencer Bridge Road. It was the white Fiesta that pulled out and turned left, coming the opposite direction towards me, that kind of got my attention. It didn't really stop at the junction. It literally just took off down here, doing in excess of 60 mile an hour. So I've gone across and hit the 999 button, put the blue lights on. My thought process was that potentially I'm following a stolen vehicle. Speed 70, doing a few overtakes.
PC Lee had no idea who was driving the car or why they were driving so dangerously.
It's wrong side of the island, it's still catching road out, speed 50, low risk. It's 3 up, unknown to me. Weather conditions are fine and dry, traffic is live, just approaching the red ATS with white element, stand by. The vehicle is heading towards the town centre. Where town centres are, they're normally, a lot busier. Still Kettering Road out of town, speed 70, traffic's light.
PC Lee still had no idea why the driver was so desperate to evade him.
Just approaching where the speed camera is, just doing a few overtakes of a couple of vehicles. Up to medium, back down to low.
Somebody's popping for you, Dan. See where you're coming from. Going in here.
It's just approaching Morrison's to the near side, speed 60. So wrong side of the road, traffic is light, medium risk.
A43 coming in that way. Yes, I'm just touching. If you go influence your A43, Dave, we'll try and get a stinger set up on the A43.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got blocked just approaching the roundabout.
What's the vehicle?
It's gone left, Moulton Way, temporary loss.
The chase continued for 7 miles along country roads.
Contact gain again. Let's go right again, Darren. It's heading towards Moulton now. It's eased off a little bit now. Speed 70. It's gone left. It's gone down through a no entry, cross street. The type of vehicle that he was in versus the one that I was in, he was going to find it extremely challenging to shake me off. We're on to the one-way system. I believe it's Church Street. Road conditions are light. It's still going round the one way again, Darren. He's kind of flat out along here. We're doing 80, 90 mile an hour. Yeah, that's all copied. Speed 90 in the 30. Traffic is light. Little does he know that around about this point, I've got an officer that's at the crossroads down here that's sat there with a stinger ready to deploy it.
The car was finally stopped by traffic officers, but the 3 occupants made a run for it on foot.
One of them got out and ran over that way, and then the other 2 went garden hopping over into these premises here.
At last, their identities were revealed. Gang member Calum Smalley and Cray Stewart, believed to be the County Line kingpin. With drugs and a phone found, this could be the breakthrough the investigation needed.
I'd come in on duty on the 19th of April and the station was buzzing and I said, "What's happened? Haven't you heard? There was a massive car chase last night involving Cray Stewart as the driver."
Cray and Smalley were arrested by the traffic officers, and Cray was charged with dangerous driving and possession of drugs. But he was once again released on bail.
I'd see him in the community. He'd be riding his bike and he'd be goading me, goading the other officers, saying, "You're never going to catch me." He knew. That's not somebody who doesn't want to be doing that. He wanted that life. That was fun for him. And I'm trying my best, and my team are trying their best. My supervisors are trying their best. Everyone's trying their best to make the wider community safe, but it's just getting worse. Again, they're released, and it all keeps going. It seemed like a Groundhog Day loop. We get the intelligence, we conduct the warrant, we find these people, we get drugs, weapons, cash, phones. The gang doesn't give a damn, and they carry on. We needed something to break the loop.
The police had found a phone in the car, which they hoped might help crack the case.
When that vehicle was recovered, the line phone was in there with a dealer list, a list of customers for the drugs line.
This deal list was perfect for us because we could link that with names and amounts from the phones that we'd already had and downloaded. These names matched some of the people that were buying drugs from the group.
With stronger evidence against them, the team started to put together plans for yet another raid on the drug-dealing headquarters in Drayton Walk, one they hoped would finally put them out of business.
We wanted to enforce on a Misuse of Drugs Act warrant and hopefully find them with drugs, and at court, hit them with the closure order as well, so that if they ever did get bail, they wouldn't be able to go back to that address.
In the early hours of the morning, the flat was raided and Class A drugs were found. They successfully arrested 2 members of the gang. But gang boss, Cray Stewart, was not there.
One of the individuals had drugs on him, and one of those individuals was also the flat holder. At that time, we felt that there was a really strong case to charge and remand those 2 members of the gang and get them out of the way.
I felt like we were getting somewhere because 2 of the gang were remanded in prison. I wanted Cray Stewart because he was the lead of the gang and he was still out and about. The intelligence that we were getting saying that he was looking for a different address.
As Cray was looking for somewhere else to deal his drugs from, the raids had provoked more violent attacks on the estate.
We saw an increase in arsons, and that was the real concern for me when we started to see that crime type. We got a report from a resident on the estate that had put their washing out and someone had set fire to it. And there were children in that house, there were children in that flat. So we knew that we had to move quickly.
With the situation at crisis point, the police found Cray.
Cray Stewart was now using his home address, which is where he lives with his mum and dad and younger brother, to deal the drugs from. We decided to conduct several warrants at the same time for all the addresses that were coming in from people in the community to say that that gang was using these addresses to deal from.
There was around 70 officers involved in the operation. Failing wasn't an option for us. We were going to get that result.
Police! Police, show yourself! Police! Come here now! Come here now! Put your hands up! Put your hands up! Come here now! Come here now! Walk to me now!
It was the most perfect timing because he'd fallen asleep on the sofa in his living room with crack cocaine and heroin all in front of him on the coffee table, and he was wrapping it up. He was preparing it for sale.
There's quite a bit of drugs here, mate. So just keep control of him. We'll photograph it and then sort it.
She's a warrant and an emissions of drug search. All right.
Let me speak. Make sure this is secure. No, we're taking off to custody, mate.
He had his line phone for making these deals. He had cash next to him as well. So that meant that Cray then got remanded that day and he got sent to prison.
Hey, Mum, I'm going to jail, mate. Can't let you give me a cuddle?
Right through it, mate.
Right, love you. Right, actually, I'm going to jail, right? See you later.
I just remember thinking, we've got him. We've got him at last. And it was a good feeling.
After 2 years and 9 warrants, 3 of the gang were now behind bars. The team now faced the challenge of keeping them there.
The stuff in the living room is all mine. There is more by the side of the sofa.
By this point, we had Cray Stewart and Jamie Hobbs remanded in prison. We needed to make sure that we were working as fast as we could to get everything together for a court date and to bring in the rest of the people that weren't remanded to make sure that they got their prison sentence as well.
Having seen the gang walk free so many times previously, Inspector Andy Blaze decided to take a bold approach to the charging.
If we were to just deal with a possession with intent to supply, a one-off search, seizure of supply quantity drugs, the individual might look at a 2 or 3 year sentence, or even in some cases with mitigation, a non-custodial sentence.
The plan was to gather all the evidence together and prove the more serious charge of conspiracy to supply, showing that the previous charges were all connected and part of a bigger drug-dealing operation.
With a conspiracy, you're upping the sentencing options for the judge and getting closer to the sort of 10-year mark.
PC O'Sullivan was tasked with preparing the evidence to convince the CPS of this higher stakes crime, including the data from the 44 phones seized in the raids.
You think this has got to be watertight. It's just about proving that. So I wanted the best result for the people that had given me that intelligence in order to put these people away because they were causing so much harm.
After 2 months of evidence gathering, the Crown Prosecution Service authorised the conspiracy charge against Cray Stewart, Jamie Hobbs and Calum Smalley.
Leading up to the trial, I didn't get much sleep, no. But thankfully, when all of the evidence was put to them, they decided actually, along with their defence lawyers, this case isn't worth going to trial because we're going to get longer sentences if we don't go guilty early. There's too much there. It was watertight. The investigation worked. The evidence was there.
At court, Calum Smalley was sentenced to 4 years. Jamie Hobbs and the gang boss Cray Stewart both received more than 7 years each.
They're not not there anymore, and they're not dealing drugs, and they're not carrying weapons, and they're not exploiting children.
The community itself, when we walk through it, you no longer hear the whistles to state that we're walking about. People talk to you. There's still issues there. It's still a deprived part of the community, but it just feels different when you walk around.
The neighbourhood is in a better place. Crime figures are much lower. That's crime and antisocial behaviour in the area. That said, the battle against drug supply in the town is not over.